As we sing this evening, send the light, send the light. It's 565. Think about the missions conference starting this Friday. We're starting some of that tonight, so let's sing this great mission song. Send the light, number 565. Here we go. There's a call comes for the restless waves. Send the light, send the light. There are souls to rescue, there are souls to save. Send the light, send the light, send the light. The blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore. We have heard the master call today. Send the light, send the light, and a golden offering at the cross we lay. Send the light, send the light, send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore. Let us pray that grace may everywhere abound. Send the light, send the light, and in Christ-like spirit everywhere be found. Send the light, send the light. Sing on verse number 4. Let us not grow weary in the work of love. Send the light, send the light. Let us gather jewels for a crown of love. Send the light, send the light, send the light. The blessed gospel light, let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light, let it shine forevermore. Great singing. You may be seated at this time. Sir. All right. Well, listen, we're in for a treat tonight as we think about not only this evening, but in the next couple of days. We've been telling you, and hopefully you're excited about our missions conference. And even though it starts on Friday night, really tonight just kind of gets us going, and it gets us thinking that way. And we actually had 4 missionaries that were scheduled for our missions conference, and God just providentially, actually, Brother Sears, one of the missionaries called and said, Pastor, we could still come, but the truth is that God's been so good. We've actually raised 97% of our support. By the time you have your conference, we're probably going to be. We've already got other churches that have said they would take us on, and I told him, I said, listen, man, I'm excited to hear that. And so he was just honest with me, and I said, well, listen, I want you to use the time that God's given you. And so I said, listen, we wish you well. And he, of course, said the same thing. And as a result of that, I was kind of sad when I hung up the phone because I thought it would have been nice to have a 4th missionary. And then Nathan and his wife actually visited here, and they were on their honeymoon. When was that? In June. And so they're newlyweds. Here they are. And they were here. And so we talked when they were here. And of course, since then we've emailed. And he asked if they could come, and we looked at our schedule and his schedule and when they could be in this area. And so the Lord just worked it out to where they're here right before our missions conference. And so even though they're not going to be here during the conference, they're going to be, I didn't even tell them this at dinner time tonight, but they're going to be a part of our conference. We're not going to forget them when they go. We want them to be a part of it. And so we'll be sharing their faces and their story a little bit even after they leave. But I'm looking forward to a great night tonight. We want to begin this evening with a word of prayer. And so, men, why don't you come? We'll receive the offering, kind of expedite things tonight. And so, brother, go ahead and come on. Brother Richard, you help with the offering tonight. Why don't you go ahead and come on up, and we'll receive the offering tonight and ask the Lord to bless the service. Let's pray and bow our heads and bow our hearts tonight. Lord, thank you again for your goodness and your mercy and grace. Thank you for the Lord Jesus Christ. And as we think about this evening and on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Lord, may your will be done in our lives, in our church. I pray that we would be willing to do whatever it is that you lay on our hearts to do. Tonight, may we listen intently missionary, he and his wife, and the burden that they have for Iceland. And then, of course, Lord, we ask that you would be with the message tonight that will follow, that you would just use it to challenge us. Bless the offering tonight. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Give the missionary as much time as we can tonight, but you have the prayer page there in your hand. Hopefully you receive one of those on the way in. And of course, we've been praying for many of these folks. I wouldn't mention tonight, I don't see the honeycuts, but just to help you understand sometimes some of the burden that some of our members, part of our church family, and of course, Brother John, of course, has been dealing with some health issues, and we need to continue to pray for Brother John, but also we've been praying for Michelle, and I believe tomorrow is Michelle and Raquel's 24th birthday, and so some of you that know the Fairness-Shea girls that grew up here, if you have their phone number or you can text them or something like that, I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. I know that Brother Vaughn was going to go up there, and I think Diane's been up there because of Michelle, and John and Carol may have gone. But on top of Carol and John having to deal with so many things, and of course their granddaughter Michelle is having, of course, going through treatments for the cancer and all that she had, and then on top of that, Carol's sister Patricia, her cancer is very advanced, and of course I know that Carol has a real burden for her sister. I think she feels she's not saved, and she's been wanting to witness to her and talk to her, but her sister's in such pain. And so if you remember to pray for her sister Pat. But then also, Brother Vaughn told me on Sunday evening that her daughter Carla, that went with us to the Holy Land, her cancer is back. And so she now has a daughter, she has a granddaughter, and a sister that are all going through cancer at the same time, on top of everything else. So if you would remember the Honeycutt family and all that they're dealing with, and as well as so many others on here that we've been praying for. And if you have a prayer request, let us know after the service tonight, or email us and let us know. We want to make sure, or if there's a change, make sure you let us know that. We want to make sure that everything's current. Of course, all of our missionaries are on the back. Let's continue to pray for each and every one of them. And it's our joy tonight to have a missionary couple, a young couple that is excited about what God has called them to do. And we went to dinner, and I kind of talked with them and shared some things, and we listened to what they had to say, and I like what I had to hear. And so I hope that you listen tonight, some of the things. And so Brother Nathan, why don't you come tonight, and do you have your mic on? Good to go, Bray Johnny? Got him? All right, well, why don't you go ahead and come tonight, and why don't you introduce whatever you got.
God dagen. Vi heter Nathan sears, och jag är tacksam för präster, och jag är tacksam för teamet med Tala and Igor. Don't freak out, I'm not speaking in tongues tonight. Just said hello, basically. I said my name is Nathan, and I'm thankful for Pastor, and I'm thankful for the opportunity and the time to speak with you all this evening. Like I said, my name is Nathan Sears. This is my wife, Gumi. We're sent out of Coastal Life Baptist Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and also assisted by Baptist Missions to Forgotten Peoples, just in Jacksonville, Florida. And we are missionaries on our way to Iceland, and we are very excited. Excited is probably the largest understatement of the year, for me anyway, of how excited and how ecstatic I am to be on my way to Iceland and all the things that God is doing through us and with us in our lives and using us to affect other people's lives. It's just been an amazing journey so far. This is our 13th church that we've been able to be at. So this is the very beginning of our deputation trail. Our mission board calls it our pre-field ministry. And I love that term. I get in the habit of saying deputation, but they call it a pre-field ministry. I love it because it is a ministry. Even though we are just going from church to church, we don't get a lot of time to impact different churches or be a blessing to any church. It is really a ministry. As best we can, we try to pour our hearts out into every church to let them know that we love them, that they're doing a good job, and challenge them in the Word of God. Just a little bit of time. I don't want to go too long tonight. I know we have a lot of things that I want to get through, and then obviously preaching. But just want to say a couple things, probably a little bit 5 minutes here about things about Iceland. We are going to Iceland to help a missionary named Patrick Weimer. He's been there for about 20 years, and he's doing a phenomenal work there. He has seen a church started. It was started before he got there. He's there now, pastoring it. He's been there for about 20 years. And he is taking on the opportunity of translating the Bible. Right now they have in Iceland one Bible translation. It wouldn't really be anything we could really relate to. Maybe an NIV or RSV, kind of how it would read. But as far as the Icelanders know, it's just the Bible. There's no version, there's no translation. It's just the one they have is called just the Bible. And it's only about 80% accurate. So it's actually very, very corrupt and very indoctrinated. So he started the work of already translating that, and that's a huge project. Of course, he's also the pastor and really the only worker in this church. He's got a couple of people helping him here and there, doing a little bit, but not really helping out a whole lot. And so he's got a myriad of different people groups that he's able to witness to. So he's got all these things on his plate, and then on top of that, he's added this massive project of translating the Bible, but also a building project, and it's actually about to be done. They're going to be finishing the building project next summer, or this coming summer. And so he's super excited to finally have the construction done, but obviously a lot of work yet to do with witnessing to different people and also with the Bible translation. If you look back at our display at the end of the evening, you'll see that the country of Iceland is roughly the size of Kentucky, but only has about a 13th of the population. So it has only about 340,000 people throughout the entire island. Only about 120,000 of those live in the capital peninsula, which are highlighted on the map there, which is where we're going to be serving in the capital, Reykjavik. And it's a very interesting culture. It's seemingly open, but deceptive. How many of you here by raise of hand, and you may not have no worries, have heard of AOC, the politician? It's a very left-wing liberal who's here in America running for president. And I asked the missionary, we were there just a couple weeks ago, we were able to go and help them out. And I asked them, I said, what's the mindset of the people? Where are they at as far as how I think of the world and I view the world and my morals? Where do they stand? And they said, well, do you know AOC? And I said, okay, I've heard a little bit about her. And I said, well, AOC would just be another girl at the grocery store here. So it's very far left-wing mindset there. They claim that there is a 0% Down syndrome rate, not because they've cured it, but just because if there's any hint of Down syndrome, they automatically abort the baby. So there's a lot of very sad, very cultural things that just are obviously against the Bible and against what we would see as morally wrong. And whenever you would as you would witness to someone in Iceland, first off, they do speak a little bit of English. There's a massive industry of tourism. About 2 million people a year come through in tourism. So you're more likely to speak to an English-speaking person than you would an actual Icelander. But if you speak to them in their own language and you ask them if they believe in God, they would say yes, but they would answer the same way that if you would ask them if they believe in Santa. They'd say, oh yeah, Santa's a great guy. God's a great guy. He's up above taking care of me. And then if you tell them that He loves you, they're oh yes, God loves me. Of course He loves me. He's God. Why wouldn't He love you? Santa gives me gifts. God loves me. That's what they do. So it's very sad. They seem to be open. The missionary actually told me, he said, even though they may not look like cannibals in Africa, may not look with the scary masks and the spears, that's their mentality. That's their spiritual depravity point. That they have no concept of Christianity. The Norse religion of Thor, Odin, and Loki is much more prevalent than anything we would consider to be Baptist. It does have 2 Baptist churches, and I use the term very loosely just because it's on the sign. One was the missionary who I spoke of, Pastor Weimer, and then also the second church, and it's a very contemporary church, and those are the only 2 Baptist churches in the entire country. In fact, Pastor Weimer's church, First Baptist Church, is the first Baptist church in the history of Iceland, and it's been around since the Vikings, so about 1,200 years. And just about 60 years ago, the first Baptist church was started in Iceland. So there's a huge, huge, huge need for the gospel to be reached there. For those people, everybody who is born in Iceland is automatically registered to the Icelandic church, which is Lutheran. Lutheran by name, more Catholic in doctrine, but it's just as Lutheran as America is Christian, or America is Baptist. And we would love to say that America is Baptist or America is Christian, but you can very easily go and walk around the streets and ask a couple people and really realize that America's morals, although they claim they might be Christian and they know God, their morals do not mirror that. And it's the same way with Iceland. So they would say that they're Lutheran, that they go to the church. But I call them CEOs, the Christmas and Easter only. So they don't really go to church. They kind of do it for a tradition, or for that's kind of like what you're supposed to do. You go through confirmation and then you kind of just live your own life. But it's very sad to see. They're open to the gospel initially, but actually asking them to receive Christ and make it a part of who they really are, and not just a little God they put on the shelf is an entirely different story. So we're excited to see what God has for us. And at this time, we would love to have the video presentation. The Icelandic people are a very sad culture, religiously speaking. They're very dark as far as the immorality. The country of Iceland is very religious. Every citizen who is born is automatically registered to the state church, not because they practice or really that they believe in it, but more just that that's part of their culture. They still believe in the Norse religion of Thor and Odin and Loki. It's very sad to see that something even completely different than what we would know as Christianity is there and very much more prevalent than Christianity itself. In 2018, I had the opportunity to intern in Iceland with missionary Patrick Weimer, and we had the opportunity to sit down with him and just really see the inner workings of the ministry there, get to know the need for the people, the need of the Bible to be translated, and all that really goes into what being a missionary is. And it was there that God showed me through His Word that was where He wanted me to be.
It was an overwhelming peace to know if this is where God wants me to go, then this is my calling also.
Icelandic culture is very large on storytelling. I'm very excited that we get to go and we get to share the most important story of all. In a small culture like Iceland, only having just over 300,000 people, only about 120,000 people being in the capital peninsula of Iceland, when one family really devotes themselves into a church and gets involved, it makes a large difference in the community. So our goal is really just to reach family by family. Their Bible has only about 80% accuracy. So Brother Weimer, who's there in Iceland, has already started the work of translating it. So we're going to be working with him to help translate the Bible, and eventually we would love to be able to start our own church.
I know it would mean the world to me as a missionary going out with my husband, just a letter here and there, or seeing what we're doing, keeping us accountable.
Being part of the missions field in whatever aspect you can would be the largest part we could ever ask for. Because while we are the missionaries going to Iceland, ultimately, we're just ambassadors for Christ. It's really about who we have the opportunity to bring to Iceland with us, which is our Savior, Jesus Christ. And as we bring Him, He is the one who's going to be doing the work in people's hearts and transforming lives. We're super excited to see what God does for us here, and ultimately once we reach the field.
Right, Brother Nathan, why don't you really come on up if you would, and they didn't really say it, but just so you understand, come on over here if you would. Brother Nathan is a son of a pastor, and of course, his dad's been in ministry, and then Maguni is actually a missionary's child. Her dad was military, and she lived. How long did you say you lived in Iceland? 12 years. 12 years. So she's been there, lived there. She understands the people. mentality that is there. And of course, you might ask a few questions tonight, but you probably sense Iceland is very socialistic. Their education, their medicine, things like that. There's challenges everywhere you go, and Iceland is no different. But yet these people need to know the Lord. They need the light. And I like to maybe do a little research, and I was telling them when we went out that Iceland, and he might be able to correct me or make it sound a little bit better, but their summers, some of their days in the summertime are literally supposed to be like 24 hours of light in a day. I mean, all day, no dark. And then, of course, their winters, they have days where it's not pitch black, but they only have a few hours of light, daylight or sunlight in a day. And Nagumi was saying that a lot of people that are not used to Iceland, they suffer from depression because the weather has a lot to do with a person's mentality. Here in South Florida, the rain doesn't seem to affect us because we're kind of used to it. But I don't know about you. When we have a cloudy day, I can definitely tell. And so there's a lot of challenges. Some of them are physical, some are emotional. Of course, naturally, the biggest thing is the spiritual side of it. But you may have a question tonight about Iceland. You've heard about the size of it. It basically is just like England, state-run church, but it's more Lutheran than maybe other places, and probably about like Catholicism here in the States. Anybody have a question about Iceland or where they're heading and what they're going to do? Anybody else? Brother Wally?
Major industry, what keeps the people busy?
So being an island, it's very expensive, so a lot of people they have to import basically everything, but the main industry that they have there is fishing. Right. Basically, about 30% of the people are fishers. They go out every town you go to. So if you look at that, there's lots of little teeny fishing villages all the way around the country, and then every one of them has a school and a fishing village, and a fishing industry where they'll have the slicers and the fishing and the ice and all that kind of stuff. So fishing is huge there.
Anybody else?
Is it cold there a lot?
Well, as you can guess from the name, it doesn't get the name from nothing. In Greenland and Iceland are actually, it's very interesting because Greenland, if you look at a topographical map, Greenland is completely white. It seems like no green. Iceland is much more green than Iceland. It does get cold. It's not called Iceland for nothing, but it is a lot better than Greenland. As far as the temperatures go in the summer, it will never hardly ever get above 60. At dinner next to my wife said, correction, it did get above 60 once. So it hardly ever gets above 60. But a light jacket, you kind of a windbreaker kind of a thing. You're easy to go out in the wind. But in the winter is when the sun goes down, so you lose a lot of your heat input. And then the wind starts, and being an island in basically the middle of the ocean, there's hardly, in the capital area anyway, there's hardly any mountains or any trees to block the wind. In fact, the joke in Iceland is if you're lost in the woods, stand out, because there's nothing taller than you. You might find a couple trees here or a couple trees there, but nothing like down here in Florida. So it does definitely get cold, and with the wind ripping through the country like that, wind chill take it from teen degrees, maybe single-digit degrees, to the negative teens, and just drastic 50, 60 mile an hour winds there in the winter. So it's basically a constant hurricane.
You see all of our people shaking. They're all shaking. They don't understand below 60. So maybe Nathan, talk a little bit about the actual people that settled in Iceland, the language, and some of what we talked about, some of the barrier there that you might encounter.
So, well, first off, I spoke a little bit of Icelandic here, but that almost is the extent of Icelandic that I know. So I'll definitely need to go through a university level of Icelandic to learn that, so I can help a missionary translate the Bible. But Iceland was founded back in the Vikings. So you've heard of like Lee Erickson, who was one of the first people who set foot on the New World, and Eric the Red, his dad. They basically settled Iceland, and there's a lot of history you can go into with Eric the Red being exiled to Greenland and founding Greenland and all that stuff. But Iceland's people it's as a history very family oriented. They're huge on the family bond and family connection. But it's interesting that families are always broken. citizens, you have to purchase the marriage license and pay to be married. So they see there's not really a tax benefit being that it's socialist. So a lot of times they'll kind of just live together, be husband and wife without the actual legal documents. And then if they ever decide to split up, it's less paperwork to do and they can go live their life. So a lot of different dynamics of difficulties.
Yes, sir.
Are most of the people like that race of people you don't have like here in South Florida?
Right.
Why don't you mention
You have everything here. You have Central American, Caribbean people, South American people. You're not Americans, so so you got it right here because we're like a port to all of this. There, it's just their groupings.
Why don't you mention like the tourism that you mentioned?
Okay. There is a large, as I said earlier, with tourism. When we were there for our internship in 2018, there was actually more tourists on the island on that whole month than there were actual citizens of Iceland. So you have a 1 in 2 chance, or a 50-50 chance of walking up and talking to an English person or a tourist, or also maybe an Icelander. So you really don't know. So there's a lot of, they speak English. It's broken English, just enough to kind of tell you, yeah, the gas station's that way, or the hotel's over there, that kind of stuff. But as far as actually people living in Iceland, the majority would be like very Aryan race, blonde hair, blue eye, Viking kind of a feel. But there's a lot of refugees who come from all over the world. There's people there from Peru or from Africa who escaped their lifestyle, whatever it may be, whatever danger they were in. They flee just to wherever they can go, and Iceland's one of those places. And they accept them as long as like the legal documentation and everything. That of course they're allowed to come to the country as refugees. Sorry. But what they'll do is a lot of times, especially down in Africa, they'll come to Iceland because it's the third most expensive country in the world. They'll work there they'll work as a dog. They'll work, live in very poor conditions with a whole bunch of other people in one apartment. Save up money, live there for about 10 years, and move back to their home country and live like kings because they've made buku bucks from Iceland and just transfer it over to their home country. But so you'll find mostly the Aryan Viking type people there, but there are a lot of other cultures in the capital area.
So tell everybody how much a gallon of milk costs.
Gallon of milk right now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't remember, it's probably $5 a gallon.
It's $8. $4.
And gasoline is.
They do it per liters, so it's kind of difficult changing it over. But gasoline right now is about $7 a gallon. The missionaries who are over there,
$7 a liter.
No, a gallon.
Oh, gallon.
Yeah, a gallon. But the missionaries who were over there, I've seen it go as high as $11 a gallon, just for different reasons.
Robert?
You got a question right here.
Yes, sir.
What education did I take? Well, I was homeschooled my entire life, and I grew up going to school at home, which was awesome because I got to sleep until 9, go to school in my PJs, and eat lunch whenever I wanted to. But I did go to college at Golden State Baptist College in California, where I was able to learn these many different professors who knew about missionaries and what it was to be a missionary and all that kind of stuff.
And that's where he met his wife.
It is.
In terms of electricity, is that geothermal stuff and it's reasonably cheap, or is it coal and expensive?
As far as prices go, for the cost of electricity, I'm not totally sure because I haven't actually faced that just yet, and I never asked the missionary about it. It never came up. But a lot of it is definitely geothermal, and I'm sure my wife would be more than happy
I was
to
going to say she might be able to.
Yeah.
Geothermal, when I was there 13 years ago, the heating was free because everyone needed it. It comes hot right out of the ground, so it has to be cold before it comes to your house. So it used to be free. So, but now it's ranging. I think it's over $30, and depending on what amount you use during that time frame per month. So.
And it's actually funny because if I understand it correctly, you actually have to pay more for your cooled water than your heated water because there's a lot of volcanic activity. If you look back at our table also later, you'll notice that we have an active volcano on our display table. And it's not hot, don't worry, kids, you can touch it. But it's very hot underneath the ground, so water is very hot already. And so when it comes through, they have to go through a different process and cool it. So you'll never find air conditioning in Iceland. It's always heaters. You find the radiators on the wall that heat the rooms and stuff like that, but you never have air conditioning, and you have to pay for your water to be cooled.
In terms of age distribution? Is everybody young, or is everybody old, or is it just an even?
Most people are young. There's definitely your older groups of people. They're not so prevalent as far as in the everyday culture. They kind of stay at home. But most people that you'll face would be middle aged and younger.
As far as witnessing on the street, it's easy. There's any challenges besides the language?
So, right, of course, language for me personally would be the largest difficulty. But once you're able to actually speak to them in their language, they're very open to hear what you have to say, and they love the stories that you tell. Jesus coming down on the cross. They love all the stories that you're able to tell them from the Bible. But as far as actually having them take that and take it into their lives and believe it as a personal testimony of this is why I'm going to heaven, and this is that I know that I'm going to heaven because Jesus died, is a lot more difficult to do. They're open and they love to hear stories. They just don't really have any desire to change their life. They like their lifestyle, they like how they live, and they don't want to really change anything about that.
There's no restrictions?
No, yeah, okay, so I understand what you're saying. They do have the church, the state church rather, but there is an article in their constitution, just like much like in America, freedom of religion. So there's no government overshadow of saying like you can't talk about this, you can't, kind of preach on this, you can't have a Baptist church of any kind. Now you do obviously have to be careful because it is a socialist mentality. You have to be careful of some of the things you talk about as loudly as you would here in the States. But there's nothing as far as the government would say that you cannot speak or cannot be a Baptist church or go out and witness.
Rudy?
So given the amount of tourism against the amount of population, is there a difference in your approach as far as ministry and outreach and that kind of thing? Or how do you kind of tackle the fact that more people are going to be traveling through than living there personally?
So the missionary, where the church is at right now is right off of basically the main highway that goes from the airport into like the downtown area where most people would be at, which is Reykjavik. They're right outside of basically what's called Catholic, and you basically have to pass their church. And it's printed right on the side, First Baptist Church in English. So being that it is a lot of English speakers who are going to pass that on a day-to-day basis, they have English-speaking services every week. They have, like I said, they have a myriad of different people that they'll witness to. So they have the English-speaking refugees or tourists that come through. They have the Icelandic people who live there. They have Icelandic adults, teenagers, and children, and different services for each of those. So they kind of have to stagger those throughout the week as they're only just the missionary family really being able to teach that. But they have wide open doors and right off the main thoroughfare for all tourists to come in.
Awesome. Yes, one more. Yes, ma'am.
If the commodities are that high, expensive, what is the average salary?
I actually don't know the average salary. I know that as far as an exact number, I do know that they don't live wealthy. There's not really a desire to have like all the things. We were there, the nicest car, just to give you a little bit of a grasp, the nicest car we saw was like a 2011 Corvette. And like the missionaries like stopped and like looked at it like, whoa, that's super nice. And that just puts it in terms for me because I'm a car guy, I love all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that stuff, since it's so expensive, that a lot of the money goes to housing and car and gas, obviously being so expensive in the cost of actual living. But it's not very wealthy as far as like just having abundance of money.
Okay. All right, why don't you have a seat and we'll do a couple. We'll let the children be dismissed at this time. And boys and girls, thank you for sitting and behaving so well. I appreciate that. I wanted to mention as they're leaving, of course, thinking about our children. The one thing that the seers said as we were going out tonight was, and really this is becoming even more and more prevalent here in the United States, is that it's not that the people are not interested at all, but certainly just like we see here, that they said that really the way to get into the home, the way to get to the parents is through the children. And I know Brother Flynn and maybe others in here tonight, Brother Flynn was reached with the gospel through his kids, and we're seeing more and more of that. By the way, that's another reason why we should be investing in children, because oftentimes adults, they're too busy for God. They don't have time for God. And so they've already seen this. Of course, his wife has lived over there for quite a few years with her family. And so this is one thing that they'll be focusing on, like you mentioned, Brother Wally, that it's not necessarily just all young people, but the vast majority are middle-aged and under. And, America, honestly, I find it easy to reach people here that are older than me because they know what true religion is. It's the people that are younger than me that really, and again, I'm for them, but many times they're just too busy for God. And I can remember being that way. And so here's a young couple that's excited. They're going to go work with a veteran missionary that they've already been there. They already have spent some time with the missionary that is there. They're going to glean from that. His wife, you're fluent in the language, I'm assuming, or kind of? Yeah. And so I imagine living there for, you were 6, you said, when your family moved there?
6 weeks old.
Oh, 6 weeks old. So yeah. And you moved away when you were 12 years of age. And so she's actually a citizen in Iceland, and he's going to file or whatever they do for citizenship, but the process may take 4 years. So they're not going there just to go there, stay for a couple of years. They're going to invest their lives like missionaries do all over the world. And we just need to get behind them. And it's exciting because if you've heard what I did, they're going to go there, work with a veteran missionary, and then launch out and start maybe the second Baptist church in Iceland. And maybe there'll be a third Baptist church. Who knows? Maybe one day there will be a Baptist church on every corner in Iceland. I don't know, but God can do anything. And that's why, as we think about our missions conference, these commitment cards, stewardship cards that we passed out, the samples on Sunday, I hope that you have that. You've been looking at it, praying. But this right here gives you a good idea of what you would be giving towards. Of course, we have 62 other missionaries that are already on the field doing what they're going to go do. And so this would be a great opportunity. I wanted to remind you, we sent out another email, the missions conference schedule. Make sure that you're here on Friday night. We'll get started. Of course, we'll have Chick-fil-A at 6 o'clock, and we'll enjoy a nice meal right here in the auditorium. So come in, enjoy the meal. We'll have the missionaries here. As soon as we're done with the meal, we get to know the missionaries Friday night. Saturday, if you can make it at 10 o'clock, we're going to go out and get out some invitations to come to our services, be at the conference in our community, and if the Lord gives us opportunities to witness to some folks. And then, of course, Saturday night we have our international dinner. I hope that you're here for that. Bring whatever you signed up for. And you say, Pastor, I didn't sign up. You might be a single man or a single lady. Hey, listen, Publix is right around the corner if you don't want to cook. But find something. One of the guys in the office said today, we've got Asian, we've got Caribbean, we've got American, and somebody said we should have had a column for Publix, But get you something, bring you something, enjoy the meal. But listen, can I tell you, it's not about the food, although that'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to all the different kinds of food that we'll have here. Most important thing is to hear from the Word of God, be challenged. And Sunday's going to be a great, great day. And we gave all that out. I won't spend any more time tonight, but I want to give our missionary plenty of time to bring a message from the Word of God. So, Brother Nathan, you come. We're already excited. We're already intrigued about what God's going to do. And so take your Bibles tonight, and I think you have received a piece of paper. You can take some notes if you'd like to jot a few things down. And let's be attentive tonight to what God's laid on His heart. All right?
Thank you so much, Pastor, for the opportunity to be here. It has honestly been a blessing. We walked into the hotel room after just pulling in from another meeting, and it's just a very nice hotel room. My wife was just saying, wow, it's so nice, wow. And then we got here to the church, sat at the table, and Pastor took us out to eat, and it's just been a blessing to be here with you guys already this evening, just been able to fellowship with you all. So definitely appreciate that opportunity. If you would go ahead and turn your Bibles to John chapter 12. John chapter 12, verse number 24. We are going to be turning to several different passages tonight throughout the Bible. So do not feel like you have to turn to every single one. I would encourage you to pay attention and listen. Before I get going, before we're reading here, if you would, at the end of the night, if you want to stop by our table and say hi, grab one of our prayer cards, we'd love to meet you and shake your hand. But also, we have little tokens of appreciation for all you guys. So if you want, it's 1 kroner, one of the Icelandic, basically like a penny that we have, and we give them out to, if your kids want one, we're more than welcome to stop by and grab one from us. My wife will have them all. And if you want to grab them for yourself, you're more than welcome. If you want to just stop by there and say hello. All right, so John chapter 12, we're going to be starting in verse number 24. John chapter 12, verse 24, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except the corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for the wonderful day you've given to me, to us, God, for the opportunity to travel safely, Lord, and all be gathered here together in your house, and to open your word and to glean something from your word, Lord. Actually, please just open my heart that I would get something from this message, Lord, that I would be helped tonight, Lord. Actually, please just help this message to be spoken from you, Lord, not from my own, but that you can speak through me. Open your word, and open the hearts of these people. I ask all these things in Jesus' name, amen. So John chapter 12, there we find talking about the grain of wheat, and that if it doesn't die, that it's going to, it will not bring any forth any fruit. And that's going to be the idea or the theme that I'll try to follow throughout the evening, and then also try to kind of close it all together back with that same idea at the end of the night. But for right now, we'll turn back to the book of Psalms, all the way back to Psalms chapter 19. Psalms 19. For sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and start reading in verse number 7. It says, The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. If there is one thing, and I'm going to get back to this here in just 1 second, but if there is one character trait or one attribute that I would say that a Christian needs more than anything else, it would be this character trait that I will speak about tonight. If there is anything that a Christian should long for or desire from God, it is going to be what is mentioned here in verse number 9, the first one there, the fear of the Lord. Now, growing up as a pastor's son, I heard many preaching services on the fear of the Lord. Maybe it was just that I was young and I didn't understand, but I just never really understood what was the fear of the Lord. So I hope that I'll be able to help you out tonight is to show you, if you don't already know, or maybe you're not completely sure what the fear of the Lord is, that will show you from the scriptures. And anything that I have is going to be straight from the scriptures and straight from the Bible. So if you're taking notes, here the first one, for instance, is going to be the fear of the Lord is clean. So if you're taking notes whenever we go to a new passage, you'll be able to see what it is. And I'm not going to reword or anything. We're just going to take scripture as it is and use that as the points as we go through. So the fear of the Lord is clean. And if we read from verse number 7 to verse number 9, we find many different things that are characterized with of the Lord. A word followed by the phrase of the Lord. And if you ever studied your Bible, and I hope many of you have, the term for scientifically studying the Bible, or the order of studying the Bible, is called hermeneutics. And before you study the Bible, you should sit down and figure out what are your tools or what are your principles that you're going to follow as you study the Bible. That way you come out with the correct interpretation of Scripture and don't twist it with biases. And so one of the tools that I like to use with studying the Bible is context, and making sure that the verse isn't taken out of context and just used for a couple words that it has, and then try to twist it to mean something that it doesn't really mean. So if we follow context here, I believe that the fear of the Lord, all of these things come from one source, which is of the Lord. And that term "of" is if you speak Spanish, that word "de" is kind of like from. It's of the Lord. So this fear of the Lord, it comes from God. So first we'll say here that it is clean. Clean here means morally pure. And so if it's from the Lord, it is something that we are to have, but it's not something that we can create on our own. It's not something that we can manufacture within ourselves. We have to have a relationship with God and a daily relationship with Him to have this fear of the Lord. And in verse number 11, it shows this. It says, Moreover, by them, which is the things in verses 7 through 9, is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. So keeping of them, that word keeping would also mean abiding in, or being like a law-abiding citizen. You keep the law, you don't break the law. So here, the several things listed in verses 7 through 9 are rules, guidelines, or standards, if you will, that God has given to us, or God shows us that we ought to have from God in our lives, and that we are to keep them. So number one is to be morally pure. And as we go through the evening, Each of these is going to be a little bit of a test for you, if you will, if you're wondering, do I have the fear of the Lord? Measure yourself, as the Bible says, measure yourself as a looking glass to the Bible. So if the fear of the Lord is pure, or morally pure, if it's clean, ask yourself, am I morally clean? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I breaking the law of God, not of man? Of course, we are to follow the law of man first, but obviously the law of God ultimately. So ask yourself throughout the evening, whichever point, do I have that attribute of the fear of the Lord? So for sake of time, we're going to go ahead and press on here to number 2. If you would turn to Psalms 111. Psalm 111. So number 1, we saw that the fear of the Lord, it is clean. Turning over to Psalm 111, we're going to read in verse number 10. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now, the next point we're going to get to is going to they're going to go kind of together. So I'll breeze through this one a little bit, and then I'll get to the next one, and we'll kind of talk about both of them together. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom would be taking what you know. If I could give a definition to it, it would be taking what you know and applying it to a circumstance to determine the choices that you have. It would be knowing between right and wrong, if you will, knowing between good and bad. And if you have the fear of the Lord, you will have this ability, and not a superpower or a super ability, but you'll have the ability to determine between right and wrong. And in some instances, you'll find yourself in a place where you have to make a choice, but neither one of them is wrong. They're both good decisions, but there's one that God has for you. We know that we have God's will, God's good will, and then God's perfect will. So if you want to follow God's perfect will, there are going to be some times where you're going to be presented with God's good will and God's perfect will, if you will. So having the fear of the Lord is very key to making good decisions in your day-to-day life, and being able to recognize the choices that you have, and also then being able to recognize what choice should I make, which is the perfect will. So moving on to number 4, we will go ahead and turn over to Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, and verse number 7. Verses 1 through 6 of Proverbs kind of give us a little bit about what Proverbs is and why we need the book. And I love those verses. But verse number 7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. While knowledge is very similar to wisdom, it is slightly different in that knowledge is being able to, if you will, recognize the facts and know this fact about something and know this fact about something else. And wisdom would be able to take those and discern between the good and the bad, as I said earlier. Now, this is where it gets key, if you're paying attention, that the fear of the Lord is such a reverence, and I'm sure you've heard this before, probably much more well explained than I, but it is such a fear of the Lord, such a reverence of the Lord, that you're so focused on Him that absolutely everything else fades away. Almost like the best way I know to describe it is tunnel vision. Say when an accident happens and a car crashes and maybe your loved one is in the car, and everything else, nothing else that you were thinking about, the problems you have is no longer important. You are focused on the one thing in front of you. And perhaps it's a bad thing, perhaps it's a good thing, depending on the tunnel vision. But in this instance, we ought to be so focused on God and so dedicated to pursuing the one thing that God has set before us, which is to be like Him, to be Christ-like. That if we do those, we will be able to then see the differences between the good and the bad and realize what we ought to do. And honestly, between good and bad, that should be a very easy situation to be able to choose. Of course, we're all tempted. I'm not saying that you're not going to never do bad. God will obviously let different temptations in your life, and we're human. We will fall. But with having the desire to focus on God and to do absolutely everything. I heard a preacher once who said, he was beginning to preach, and he said, if I interpret this passage correctly, or if I do not interpret this passage correctly, the Bible says that I am worthy of a double judgment. And that is true for me as well. The Bible says for preachers and teachers of the gospel, or preachers of His word, if we don't teach it correctly, we are worthy of a double judgment. So I have need for fear and trembling that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing and doing it accurately tonight. But if I am teaching this correctly, then we are all the ones who are in need of fear and trembling. Because if I am teaching this correctly, nothing else matters but conforming our lives to the truth that he was about to preach on. Nothing else matters but conforming your life to the truth of the gospel. And that is really what the Christian life is all about. And I wanted to preach this message because I really believe that I think it's a great starting point for a missions conference. That it's really getting yourself right. Getting your mindset and your focus on the things that God wants you to focus on, and getting your mind thinking on the thing that God wants you to think about more than anything else. In another scripture, I can't think of the reference right now, but it says that we should love God so much, and I'm paraphrasing, but it says that we should love God so much that we're hating our family. Now, God, of course, does not want us to hate our family. The Bible obviously says, husband, love your wives. But it should be that we are so much in love with God, that we love Him so much more than our wives, our husbands, or our children, that it's as if we hate them. Because the measurement compared between our love for God and our love for our family is so vastly different. And that is really what I believe the fear of the Lord is that you're seeking Him. You have a passion. My favorite word, passion. Strong and barely controllable, barely containable emotion. That you are so passionate about doing the one thing that God has for you. And while that one thing may contain many different things, that one thing is seeking after God. And that is really what the fear of the Lord is. We find that, number one, that the fear of the Lord is pure or is clean. Find number two, that it is the beginning of wisdom. And then number three, that it is the beginning of knowledge. And so knowledge, of course, being able to recognize the choices, and wisdom being able to then discern between them and choose between right and wrong, and between right and more right. And going back to that right and more right, I believe one of the choices, for instance, of being able to choose, or being able to the discernment of choosing between right and what's more right, or God's perfect will, would be, for lack of a better illustration, being a missionary. I believe that the action of God's will is much more important than the destination of God's will. And bear with me for a second and to say that. I'm not saying that God does not have a specific place for each and every one of us to be. I believe that it does, and that is the perfect will. But as a missionary, I am much more concerned about doing what God has me to do, of preaching the gospel and telling others how to be saved and how to go to heaven and how to live the Christian life. I'm much more concerned about doing that than where I'd be doing that. I'd much rather be in the wrong place doing the right thing than in the right place doing the wrong thing. And I believe that is what I would say as a missionary. I believe that God has called me with all of my heart. I believe He's called me to go to Iceland. I don't question that at all. But if I were to choose to go to, say, France, would that be a wrong thing? And of course we would say no. It is not wrong for me to be a missionary to Iceland. It's just not where God called me. It would be as if, almost as if a Jonah. And he went to the wrong place. And God didn't use it as much as He wanted. He needed him in Nineveh. And we find that we're able to discern between what's right and what's more right. Moving on, for the sake of time, I'm almost done. We'll go to Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs chapter 8, verse number 13. And I'll conclude with this point. It's probably the one that I really wanted to get to. Verse number 13, Proverbs 8, chapter 8, verse 13 says, "The fear of the Lord is to hate evil." So you can write that in your notes. Pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate. We find a couple people in the book of Proverbs who are personified, or character traits that are given an identity or are human-like aspects. And one of those people we find as wisdom. Another we find as the fool. And here wisdom is speaking. And it's interesting to note, that there's almost no difference between the wise and the fool. In Proverbs chapter 1, in verse number 7, we were just at, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." And it's interesting that You either love it or you hate it. You're either wise or you're a fool. And so you can use that also in your life to determine, am I wise? Am I doing what's right? If someone were to come up to me and correct me and show me how I can be doing it right, do I hate that? Do I despise the instruction that God's given to me? Or do I love it? Do I cherish the wisdom? Do I have wisdom? So number 4 here we get to the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. And wisdom here is the one who's speaking, and it gives a list. After saying that it hates evil, it gives almost a definition of evil, or a couple of things that we can see that are evil. And it's interesting to me to know that the very first one is pride. The very first aspect that wisdom says is evil and that we have to hate is pride. A.R. Fawcett said, "He who reverently fears God does not approve, excuse, or admit evil, but instinctively and earnestly loathes it in every form and even shrinks from the appearance of it." Pride is the number one killer of faith. If the devil had his way, he would have every church full. He'd have every church full of people packed out. Everyone would go to church. But not a one would do anything with it. They would all look good. They would all do good. But no one would ever use the Bible, use Christianity to affect them. They'd never do anything for God because they would be without faith. Because he could get them so easily, if we can get so easily distracted on us. And I believe America is probably the most difficult place to live for what I call the curse of blessings. The curse of blessings is being where you have it so good, you have it so nice and easy that you can go to Publix and buy a meal without even batting an eye. You can do all these different things and have all these different forms of activities that you're not dependent on God anymore. And I believe that the Bible says that without faith it is impossible to please Him. Impossible. So if the devil could get us to, you can come to church, you can do that, you can have your building activities, you can have your mission conferences, but if you can just do that without faith, just give a little bit extra, that bonus you got in the check from your work this time, give that as your offering or your faith promise, and just use that. You don't have to rely on God. I'll take care of you. You don't have to give anything extra. And that is what the devil would love for us to think. He would love for us to not be dependent on God. So I believe that it's absolutely crucial, especially here in America, where we are able to have it easy, that we put ourselves on purpose in places where we have to be dependent on God. And it may not be financially. It may be that you are in a place where you have to depend on God for peace through a situation, where you have to depend on God for grace, for love, for your enemy. I don't know the situation that you're going through. And obviously finances would come up with the mission conference coming up. God wants you to give to Faith Promise. He wants you to give to missions so that He can see the gospel given throughout the world. But I challenge you, as you go into mission conference, go in with the aspect of the mindset of, can I give more? Can God use me more? And I'll close with this story, and we'll pray. But in college, and this is not to toot my horn, but only to lift God up honestly, and I mean that. I was able to, as a senior in college, I had a pretty well-paying job, and I had a lot of obviously paying for college, working through college. I promised through Faith Promise a larger amount than I had ever promised before, and I really decided to take God at His word and say that if I will give, He will give back, and it's just like that. And I was really, really worried. Honestly, I was scared at the beginning to see, am I going to be able to do this? I'll do my best to make sure that this payment is made. I said I'd make it every week. And I stayed out and I made my payment every single week. And I was blown away at what God did. Not only did He use it in missions and was able to allow the monies that I had set aside for missions to be used to do great things in the mission field, But he blessed me like I've never been blessed before. I received in love offerings and gifts and unexpected donations probably 3 times what I promised to give to God. From unexpected places that I never once asked or never even assumed that would come my way. Had no idea. But God knew. And God said, if you obey me, if you will follow God, do everything he says, he will take care of you. If you are dependent on God and you put yourself in a place where you have to have that relationship, you have to pray and beg God, God, I need you now. Put yourself in that situation. And he will bless you far beyond you would ever imagine. He will. He promised that he will. But it all is key on dying to self. You cannot focus on yourself. The grain of seed that falls and does not die beareth no fruit. But if it die, it beareth much fruit. Lord Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity you've given to me to open your word tonight and speak. God, I ask you, please, just use this, Lord, in my life, Lord, to challenge me, Lord, with faith promise and with giving and offerings in general. God, you challenged me to do more than I have before. God, and I ask you to please have allowed this to be you speaking, God. I do not want to be the mouth that's heard. God, you know that. But I ask you, please just use this in the hearts and the lives of the people here, God. That you would do something great through Bible Baptist Church. Their offerings, and through their tithes and promise giving. God, I ask you, please just bless this church enormously, more than they could ever understand how. Lord, we know it'll be from you. We'll give you the honor and glory. We sure do love you. We ask all these things in your holy, precious name, Jesus.
Thank you, Brother Nathan. Great challenge tonight for us as Christians. You know, should it bother a student in school, when he's asked to go to the principal's office? Should it bother him? It would only bother him if he's not doing what he's supposed to. Should it